Choosing the perfect adventure motorcycle tire is like navigating through the sea of oil threads in the online forums, each promising the ultimate solution, but often leading to more confusion in the end, where a simple question often gets you shamed for even posting, and every tire opinion has a dozen die-hard followers, as well as 100 critics just waiting to pounce. Despite this information overload, one tire stands out: the Motoz Tractionator Adventure. I'm going to tell you why I love the Motoz Tractionator Adventure tires, how they've helped me significantly off-road, and why I'm changing them out for something completely different. Here's my in-depth review after a full year of riding with these tires. I've had these tires on my bike for exactly 3,500 miles, and I could have made them last a little bit longer had I flipped the front tire about 1,000 miles ago. But I don't feel like I should have had to do that. I mean, it's at the point now where if I did flip them, I don't think it would be very safe. Running these tires on a 500-pound adventure bike through gravel, pavement, snow, mud, you name it, has definitely taken its toll. Now let's rewind to when I first put these tires on this bike. They were smooth, they had a lot of traction, and I immediately fell in love with them. And they're great tires, don't get me wrong. I loved almost everything about them. After about 200 miles, these tires finally broke in. That's not very long if you consider some tires take up to 500 miles, and after 1,500 they're already burned out. The slipperiness on the road went away. These tires gave me a lot more confidence compared to the stock Pirelli Scorpions. I felt like I could lean harder into the corners, allowed me to actually lean a bit while I was in the gravel. Some of the initial issues I had with these tires right out of the gate is that they tracked with any groove in the road. And I'm not talking about tar snakes, but any kind of crack in the pavement, these tires wanted to follow right along as if it was on rails. To the point where I pulled over on the freeway a couple of times to change the air pressure, thinking that had something to do with it. But after a little while, I realized that these tires just love to follow cracks. And I worked really hard to avoid that. And as soon as I'd stop paying attention, they'd remind me exactly where the crack was, causing me to follow it along for a little bit. It's not very confidence inspiring, but once you get past that, they're not bad actually.
And they ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
The other issue with the Tractionators is when leaning deep into a corner, I can almost feel each lug as I'm going along. And I know that's probably exaggerating a little bit, but it is a little unnerving when most tires have 100% or 80% of their tire covering. And this thing's almost every other, about 50%. It's not the best feeling in the world, and despite the vibrations, it never did let me slip out. In fact, one nice thing was, when I was getting close, they'd let me know gently. I'd start to feel it a little bit, but they never actually just gave way. There was lots of give, and as soon as I was pushing it a little too hard, they allowed me to come right back just enough to take control and not actually slip out. Now, the whole reason I got these tires is because Sam and I went to the Moscow Moto Dusty Lizard event at their headquarters last year. There were lots of other bikes and folks asking about our bikes. We had the new Nordens after all. One of the questions we got asked the most is why we still had the stock rubber on our bikes. And at this point, there were about 50% tread left, and I was about ready to switch them out anyways. With 890s, 690s, and BMWs there all running almost the same tire, I thought it'd be pretty cool to join the club and get the Motoz Tractionators. 2 weeks after the event, I had some in my garage from Rocky Mountain ATV and put them on my bike. Improve they did, color me impressed. It was a night and day experience, especially off-road. I could actually lean on the gravel with these things. The fronts would turn like crazy and wouldn't slip out, and the rears would hook up, just like my TW200. These things felt unstoppable. Now on-road, it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't terrible either. The most important thing is when I pushed the tires past their limits, it wasn't instant failure. It just slowly let me know I was pushing it too hard, allowing me to back off a little. Fast forward to today, 3,500 miles later, riding in almost every condition possible in every season over a year. And they really helped me off-road, making up for all the mistakes I make. About a month ago, Sam got the Dunlop Trailmax Missions. I honestly don't know how Sam put up with all the jokes and comments I made. His tire's looking so bald next to my chunky knobby tires.
Chunky knobby tires.
Would he wish he'd gone the way of the Tractionator like I did? Would he even be able to keep up with me? When we put him on his bike, the sidewall was so stiff it made it really hard to install. That makes for a good thing on a tire. Once you have them on, you have very little chance of rolling them off the bead. And yeah, I was a little bit jealous. I knew his on-road traction would be way better. So now after a month of Sam trying to keep up with me, or should I say me trying to keep up with Sam, I realized something. I had tried my hardest to make a 500-pound adventure bike look, act, and feel like a dirt bike. Life's not about being yourself. Life's about not trying to be something that you're not. And I had tried so hard to make this Norden into something that it wasn't. And after 8,000 miles, with only about 1,000 of those off-road, was I doing that? And by this logic, should I have a 2080 tire? I mean, we did get off-road, we did hit some hard trails. I've used every lug of that rear tire in the mud, don't get me wrong. But I was still mostly just riding on the road. In fact, 50% of that was trying to keep up with my friends on sport bikes. What was I using this bike for after all? When we do the BDRs or the long off-road trails, I'm gonna be throwing some Tractionators on this bike 100%. But for 80% of the time, I think I'm gonna be going with something different. Sam has inspired me to think outside the box. And that's why I'm gonna be putting some Dunlop Trailmax Raid tires on next. And they're a new tire this year. Dunlop just came out with them. They don't have a lot of runtime yet, and it's a bit of a gamble. In the end, I'm not one bit disappointed about the Motoz Tractionators. They've lived up to their reputation, 100%. And yes, they track grooves in the road, the sidewall's a little bit weak, and they're not a road bias tire. They don't pretend to be either. They're not trying to be something that they're not. If I ever get a KTM 1290 Adventure, the first thing I'm gonna do is go out and buy some Tractionators for my Norden. Until then, I'm just gonna have to compromise. Thanks for watching. Happy squatching. I think that's enough for a video.
Thank you.